So first of all, let's talk about why we're here today. Well, as we all know, this is the DevOps lifecycle. Hopefully we know this. It's basically how we build software today in a CI/CD model. We plan our software, create it, verify it, package it, release it, configure it, monitor it. And this entire lifecycle is being significantly disrupted, improved, enhanced by artificial intelligence. AI is basically everywhere today. For example, when we look at some of the Spira functionality that we have already and the new functionality, we have tools that now help you plan more effectively. Take a user story, plan out your tasks, plan out your work. That's just AI is making the planning and designing side much easier. When we talk about creating, we all know that Microsoft's got really good tools in Copilot that help you create code faster. There's other tools out there right now that can do some similar things. We anticipate that for certain applications using a low-code methodology, you might be able to draw the application and it builds the code for you from your sketches. I mean, the future is really exciting where it's going. But when we get into the verification stage in the dark blue, that's where we have a problem. One of the things we seem to find is that, yet again, testing is the bottleneck. And so if we're going to be developing code 3 times more efficiently using AI-driven development, and we're going to be making the project manager and the scrum master 3 times more efficient using planning tools that are AI enabled, that the testing side is only going to have to keep up even more. That will be the bottleneck. So having AI at the verification and testing stage is super important. And the existing test automation tools, where we have people writing pages of Selenium scripts in code, that's going to be seen as archaic. And so the future is going to be AI, either AI doing the testing or certainly AI enabling and assisting the testing. And what we're going to be showing you in Rapise today is just the first step on that journey. Rapise 8.2 is the new version with AI functionality, but I guarantee you it's not the end of the journey. It is just the beginning of the journey of where AI-driven testing is going. We are heading towards an autonomous testing future. This is just the first, I guess, step on that journey. For those, by the way, who are not familiar with the products, before I jump into products and live application, just want to make sure everyone knows the product names that we'll be talking about. This is the Inflectra suite. The main platforms are the Spira platform and then the Rapise platform. Spira is our application lifecycle management, DevOps management, project and portfolio management platform. It comes in 3 flavors. Spira Test handles requirements and task management. Spira Team is the project level lifecycle management. And then Spira Plan is our enterprise version, which gives you program portfolio management and scales the functionality across the entire enterprise. So that's really for planning and creating and management. And then Rapise is our automation platform, which does test and process automation, focusing on typically web, thick client GUI, mobile, APIs and services, and also the complex use cases where we might be blending different application types. And we have AI functionality across both the Spira platform and the Rapise platform. So that's the PowerPoint. I like to keep that to a minimum. Let's get into the live application. Bring up the browser. So today I'm going to be showing you, first of all, before we get into Rapise and the functionality we just released, I'm just going to give you a sneak peek of the updates to Spira. As you know, we released the Spira apps infrastructure a few months ago, which lets us basically have the functionality to have new functionalities delivered more quickly. So we released, using this infrastructure, the OpenAI functionality, both ChatGPT and Azure OpenAI running on the Azure platform. This is live and already out there. You probably used it already on a previous webinar. You've seen it. We've got a new version that's going to be coming out in a few months, which has some additional functionality. So I just want to show you that functionality, and that will tie us nicely into where Rapise picks up the thread. So I'm going to hide the meeting controls. So what this lets you do is, inside the new functionality, we've rewritten the prompts and rewritten the functionality. And one of the limitations we had in the original functionality, if you remember, was that it generated very simple test cases and it wasn't able to do things like risk mitigations. We're extending the functionality in this new version to include those new use cases. So it can generate more fully formed test cases, which we can then use for automation. So as an example of that, when you go into the Spira app settings right here of this new version of the plugin, we've changed the interface. We've added new prompts. One of the prompts is, how do you write the test steps for a test case? We've also changed all the prompts to generate JSON, which is more reliable. And we've also changed it to use the new GPT-4o mini model. Previously, we were using the 3.5 turbo model. There's 2 main other enhancements you're going to see. We've added the ability to have detailed test steps And we now have the option of opting in descriptions as well as names. If you use a description field, it sends more text to the model. It will use more tokens, so it is more expensive, but it lets you have a more rich set of test cases. We've also added new prompts for generating requirements from test cases as well as the reverse. And we've also generated a new prompt for generating risk mitigations from an existing risk. I'm not going to show all this functionality because the focus today is on Rapise, but just if when we get into test automation, before we get into test automation, the first thing we want to do is, of course, have a manual test case that we want to automate. So let's go in here and create a new one. So let's say, as an example, as a user, I want to book a flight between two cities. That's my user story. I click on that. And if we now go to the GPT prompt, there's a variety of prompts that we have. I'm just going to generate test cases again for today. When I click that prompt, it's going to generate the test cases, and it's going to then be able to then generate the test steps for the different tests. It can also generate tasks as well. Oh, there it goes. So it successfully created test cases. It can also generate risks and other functionality, but we're not doing that today. There we go. And if we go into test coverage, hit refresh, it's now generated 6 different test cases. And we did that before. The old version of the plugin could do that. That's nothing new. But if we now click on one of them, let's say we look at the valid case, and as well as a test case name, it's now generated detailed steps with test data. So it's now able to give you a detailed step-by-step breakdown, which could be run by a manual tester. It's got fake credit card numbers, fake expiration dates, flight numbers. All this information is there. So you can now see this information, and it's generated that for you. It did that for all the test cases. So previously, I would have had to generate, say, 6 different test cases. I might have to go through each one and generate test steps. With a new version of this plugin, I can take one user story, click one button, it runs off and does multiple prompts, does sub-prompts, and then it comes back and generates all of those different tests. So each of those tests that we see here has steps. If I look at, let's say, an invalid case, missing return date, we've now got an invalid case. Again, it's got useful test steps with descriptions, expected results, and sample data. So this is really cool functionality. That's the manual side of things. So we've got a user story, generated our manual steps. What about automation? Well, that's a great next part. So let's say we have a test case. I'm going to choose a different test case that's over here. And this is one that we can either generate manually or it's generated using AI. Either way, it's a little bit simpler, but it's using an actual real application because I don't have an actual flight application today to show you. So let's go in here. This is our famous library information system. I'll be showing you how you can use AI to automate this functionality. And the manual steps you want to do are these 3. Log into the application with librarian, wait 5 seconds and log out. And for those who never use the application, I could do it manually. Doesn't take very long. This is me doing it as a human. I might want to verify I logged in, log out. That's a simple use case. That's me doing it. Now, how do we automate that? Well, traditionally, we could record that. But what about using AI? So that's where Rapise now comes in with a new AI functionality. So the first thing is if you go over to Rapise, and this is our automation tool, Rapise. For those who've not seen it before, it's a completely codeless automation tool. It can handle web applications, desktop applications, mobile, Android, iOS, web services. It can even do hybrids. It's got pre-built accelerators for ERP like Oracle, SAP Web. It's got then Microsoft Dynamics. It's also got support for Salesforce. So lots of different application accelerators, AG Grid, lots of UI controls, a whole bunch of rich functionality. It is completely codeless, and it can also be used by automation engineers to add code as well. But added onto that foundation, we've now added AI, which is super cool. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, it means I can use my existing manual steps functionality here that you see, and this lets us see the manual steps. So these are the 3 steps we saw before that came over from Spira. So it's these 3 steps here. Rapise has the ability to pull those in automatically into Spira. And from there, you can then see the expected result and the sample data. We've got this new functionality in the dashboard where you can then turn this into a manual step. So you can go in here and there's an option to convert that from a manual step to convert that into an AI test. So what that does is it lets us then use the AI assistant. I'm just going to minimize the window, I'm going to do out of the way, and to be able to then automate that. So now we've got this manual test in Rapise. How do we automate it using AI? Well, there's two main modes of operation, and my colleague Alexis is going to show you a bit more detail. But conceptually, the system works in two ways. There's the interactive way, and then there's the way using our AI assistants. And the separate way is we can actually write tests as manual tests, and the AI will generate the testing on the fly. And there's some pros and cons to the two approaches, which I'm going to talk about. But first of all, behind the scenes, what do you have to do? Not much at all. You go into settings and you simply go to here and you put in the command you're going to be using and the model, the default model, and then there's an API token. That's all we need to connect. Right now, we're using OpenAI. So this is the OpenAI model, the GPT-4 LLM. If you're using GPT-4 through the OpenAI website, OpenAI itself, just need an API key. If you're using a private Azure version, which we support like we do in Spira, then you need to put the base URL to your Azure instance. That's pretty much it. It will use your existing LLM. It will use your existing tokens. We are looking at ways to also bundle that with the Inflectra platform for those who want to buy it through us. That's not yet available. That's coming in the future. We're also looking at adding other models like potentially Claude as well. So there's lots of functionality coming. Right now, it's a GPT-based solution. So then what we have is the chats. So the chat is if you want to basically write a test case, generate a automated test case from a manual test case. So one thing that we have to do ahead of time is obviously the application that we're testing needs to be known to Rapise. So what I did ahead of time is I did go through the application and I simply asked it to learn all the objects. So you can see here, if I look on the left-hand side, this is my test, these are my objects. I've got some different web pages. And for those who are not familiar with Rapise, this is the page name. And then these are the objects on the page like that, for example. And so to learn those objects, I simply went into the application, which is right here, and I used the learn functionality to touch different objects, and it picks them all up. And if you want to see what they look like, you can also go in to this page, and it will actually find the objects on the page for you. For example, I believe this is if I do flash, hopefully it'll work. It should flash that in red like that. So we know those are the real objects. So I am doing that ahead of time. So just so you know, that's the one prerequisite is you need to have all the objects on the page so it knows to recognize them. Then using that functionality, what did I do? Well, I took the exact same line, and I'm going to take it right here and redo it for you so you can see it live. I asked the agent to take my natural language, which you saw before over here, log in with librarian, wait 5 seconds and log out. I now go over to my dashboard and I put that in here to the LLM and I say, go. And then the agents are working behind the scenes, see the little cog going. And there we go. It generates my code. And what you can do is you simply use this apply button. I hit apply. I'm just going to show you. I've done some earlier, so you can see it in it. So, like a good cooking show. So I'm going to have it appear here. So I'm just going to go back to my dashboard. I'm going to say apply. And it then says new recording available, append. And there we go. I'm just going to add a new line in front of it. That is my new code to open up the web page, set the text, and log in. Now, one thing about AI, it is naturally, it learns as you give it feedback. So let's see if that works. So let's go ahead and try it. And this, I think, will actually not work because it's missing a step. So I want to show you that as well. So let's go ahead and play this selection. I do go back to my application. It's right there. I'm going to do play selection, which is right here. It's going to now show open up the window. And the problem is it was missing a step to log in. So it can log in from the login page, but it was missing the step to actually log in to go to the login page. Because when you ask AI, it's going to take it quite literally. So one thing you can do is the great thing with the assistant is you can actually ask it to add something on. For example, I think I did this earlier. So I'm just going to redo it, which was, can you add can you add a line to click on the login link first? Like that. That would be nice. So I do that. So it's interactive. We're talking. So basically, you need to think of it as your co-pilot or your co-tester. And so there's my login link. So now it's giving me the necessary login link. And now if I can put that in, and I'll just take the one that I did earlier, which has that now here. It's the exact same step, but it has this new line 3, the login. Otherwise, it's exactly the same as what it did before. But now I've got the extra step that was missing. And now if I do play, there we go. And I'll do play selection, go back to the page. And now it should hopefully, log in because it actually had the first step. There we go. Waited 5 seconds. So now it passed. So we've got a passing test. Excellent. So that's how you can use the interactive AI functionality. So what I'm doing is I'm asking it in natural language. It basically generates my codeless automation script that I would previously have coded myself, and it is now runnable. Now, the benefit of this approach is I've got an automation script here. It's fully editable by me. I can then do, play selection. I can edit it. And when I play it, there's no AI involved. It's playing back normally. So AI is translating my manual test into automation. The disadvantage is, as we know with automation, let's say my application changes in a subtle way. I have to rewrite my script or I have to regenerate it from AI and reapply it. So there's a second way that Rapise can handle AI, and that is to make the AI itself, the manual test itself, the test. So the source of truth for this test case is still ultimately code like this. It's steps. What if the source of truth was this? So the other thing we have in Rapise is an AI object. And that's very different because now there is no RVL script that's being stored in your test case. Your test case is the manual test. And you can now play that directly. Now, that may or may not work because sometimes, again, we don't have again, I don't have the level of control. But let's say I go in here and play this selection. And I need to go back to this browser, sorry, so you can see what's going on. Let's see what it's doing. I think it may have missed the login step. So yeah, it's missing the login step like we had before. So the question is now, so in that case, how do I see what's going on? Well, that's why we have this functionality here on the side. So you can see show AI panel. And if I show the AI panel, which you can see down below, that's showing me what it's attempting to do. And I can see that it's taking literally my language here, which is login with the URL with this librarian login and password, and this correctly translated that in real time into these lines of code. If I go to the next one, it will show me for the wait 5 seconds. I can do the same thing. It will scroll down and show me wait 5 seconds. And if I go to the third panel, it will show me the logout script. So these are all correct, but it is missing that first one. So I could add a new AI line, which would be something like, click on the login link, or I could just simply add, take the other line from before. So you can mix and match traditional, I would call RVL, traditional codeless script with AI. So you can either have the AI be of everything in real time, or you can have a mixture of recorded and converted AI into RVL and AI. So if I now apply this selection, which is a combination, and make sure my browser is ready. Yeah, play this. Make sure. Yeah, there it is. Play that selection. It should now go over here. It should now play that, and you'll log in and work correctly. So you can see there a really good example of how you can use either AI to generate RVL, which is our codeless language, or it can be used to be the actual automation itself. And there's pros and cons with doing both ways. In either case, there's always interpretability because in the dashboard you can see what it generates here. In the test example here, there's always the panel, so you can always see what it generates. Now, there's some other cool things as well. You'll notice these buttons. If I was to change the application or relearn an object, anything like that, I can regenerate the code. I can also play it directly here. And I can also give it feedback. So let's say it uses the wrong button link or the wrong name or it's missing something. I can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if it's incorrect, I can correct it and it will then learn. And it actually stores that learned information in the system. So it actually improves the model. My colleague Alexi can show more about how that works. But we do have the ability to show corrections in the model as well, which is really cool. Now, the other thing we can do, and there's lots of different use cases, I'm only showing a few of them. If you go back to the AI dashboard, you can see here there's actually different chat types. Another chat type I can do is generating test data. And if I click, so one thing I might want to do is, for example, I want to generate a list of data for this. So let's go back to my example 1 second. The other thing I had it do was I had it create a list of actions to create a book. And so if you go to my example here, here I did it before. Here it goes. I want to be able to create a book, enter the book name, and choose the genre from a drop-down list. And so I asked it to do that. The next step in my test. So I've logged in. Now I want to create a book. So I had it create that book like that. It's able to do that very nicely. It creates the right steps. There we go. Create a book. So it clicks on the link to create a book. And it says, enter the name, enter the author, enter the genre, and then click the submit button. And so it did that correctly. If I go back to my test, it's right here. So that's me generating the commands to create a book after I've logged in. If I want to do the same thing using the AI model, I can do that here. using these options. And if I want to see how the code looks, I can show the AI panel, and that will show me the clicking the link for creating the book. It will enter the name of the book. It will also choose the genre and the author, which is all correct. So it's generated a test case for me. But one thing you'll notice is the book name is these squiggly brackets. And if I try and play that, it's actually throw an error. It will say, cannot create a book called squiggly bracket because we don't have a variable. These are variables we've defined. Now, I could go ahead and define variables, but I've got AI here. So why would I do that? I can do something much more cool. What I can do is I can go in here and say, I want some books and authors. So let's say, create me please create, please create a list of books. Actually, I will do a new chat. You can do a new chat. I don't want to pollute my existing chat. So one thing is always, if you've got a session going with AI, you don't necessarily do something completely different in that session. So I'll create a new one. So I'm going to choose a data table. So I generate a data table like this, say create, and I'm going to say, please create a list of books with the name, genre, and author. And that way I'm getting exactly the data I need. Okay, I'm going to do that. It's now building me, hopefully, my data table. We'll see. And once it generates that, I can then use that in my test. There we go. And all I do is go over to my simple test. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit, make some room, and I go back to my dashboard and I say, apply. There we go. And there's my map. So this is basically a map, which is the data sheet for those who are not familiar with our Rapise. So I'm just going to give it a name. I'll call it book list, book table, like that. Okay. And now I can take my existing automation that the AI generated to create my book, which is right here. And then I can simply wrap that in a loop. So I want to wrap in a loop, and I want to allow it to a map table like that. And now what I want to do is I'll just replace, this is not an AI, this is just normal. I'll just go in here and replace this with my map. So now I've got AI generated data being fed into AI generated test case or test script. And that's the author. And that is the book table. And that is the genre, like that. So now I've got a data-driven test that AI has given me test data for. Now, if I don't like the test data, let's say those books are, I don't know, not the ones I want. The great thing with AI is the conversation. I could say, generate 10 more books that were published in the last 5 years. Maybe I only want new books. So you can now, you can refine your data set. So it's great. It's interactive. It's a full AI assistant. It's not just, a one-time do something. You can actually come back and ask it. And it maintains that session history, which is really nice. So I don't need to say, get me the name, the author, the genre. I can just say 10 more books and it knows the context. Okay, so while I was doing that, hopefully please write your questions in the, there you go. These are my other books. I'll just put these into my test and then I'm going to hand it off for the next part of our session. But let me just go here and go AI dashboard. I'll just go apply. Oops, right there. Apply. And now you've got my second, like say, newer books. It also added the publish date to prove to me that they are in the last 5 years. Now, I haven't checked that. As with AI, please, you should fact check that because maybe these books were not as new. But that's good. It does give me the date, so it gives me more confidence, and I could then remove that from my map if I don't need it. So that's data-driven testing. And with that, feel free again to ask questions in the window. Otherwise, I'm gonna hand over back to my colleague. But let me just check. I see some questions in there. We'll come back to those when we get after my colleague's next section. So Denise, if you could take over the next section and show the shadow DOM functionality.
So I'm going to show the new Shadow DOM support in Rapise 8.2, and I'll also really quick will show a couple more features that are not so big as AI, but also cool and useful. So let's start with the Shadow DOM. So I have a test case created, and first I will start the browser with some sample test that contains Shadow DOM. So I do place selection. Rapise should start Chrome browser, and here we see the page with the Shadow DOM. So here GUID generator is a control that is inside Shadow DOM. Let me start WebSpy in Rapise. And I'm going to track this input field inside GUID generator, and we will see it in the DOM tree. Let me double click it. And in XPath edit field, you can see the generated selector for this element. And notice this delimiter. So prior to Rapise 8.2, in previous versions, Rapise generated this kind of selector, and this type of delimiter designated boundaries of Shadow DOM. So it means that here we are in the light DOM, then we are digging inside the Shadow DOM root. And if you have Shadow DOM inside Shadow DOM inside Shadow DOM, then you will have a lot of these delimiters, and there will be very long selector. And if anything changes, some layers are removed along the way, and you will need, in this case, to relearn and fix your tests. In Rapise 8.2, we added ability to pierce Shadow DOM. It means that if your selector does not contain this delimiter, then Rapise will search for an element in the light DOM and inside all the shadow roots recursively. So I just edited this selector here, and if I will click test, Rapise just finds it. Also, I can write something like GUID generator. So this is the element that somewhere inside contains the input element. I again click test, and Rapise can find this element. So this Shadow DOM piercing feature makes selectors shorter, more easy to understand, and it's easy to use such selectors. Just be aware of one thing, is that Rapise now with this type of selector searches inside light DOM and all the shadow roots, and it may start finding more than you need. So for example, here inside head element, I have link, and also inside Shadow DOM, I also have some link element. So if I will search for link, and I will do test here, then in the test results, you may see that Rapise found all of them. So Rapise found in the light DOM, and it found the element inside the Shadow DOM as well. So if I have a selector here, so let's return input back again. I can learn it, add it to the object tree, and it should be added to our object repository. So this is the Shadow DOM thing. And I also want to quickly show two more features that we added in Rapise 8.2. First, I will show public page objects. So if you are using framework mode in Rapise, then you are aware about page objects and modules. And Rapise team created a lot of public page objects that do some useful things. And before Rapise 8.2, you had to go to, so let's close this one. You had to go to GitHub and find the PowerPack repository. And inside this PowerPack, go to useful page objects, read about page objects that are available, download, and then import inside Rapise. Since Rapise 8.2, you simply may right-click modules node in the object tree, go to import public page objects and see all the available page objects here. And when Rapise team will be adding more page objects, public page objects, they will start appear here. If I want to install anything here, I just need to click on it, and Rapise automatically downloads the object and installs it. If you know that there is a newer version of the page object on the GitHub, you may right-click modules node again and choose the same module, and Rapise knows that it already installed it, and it will prompt you to upgrade the version of the page object that you have. And after installation, you can immediately use it. For example, it has this page object, web page helper has get full page text. So let's go here and let's print the result of the full page text of this page. So I will just print last result. So let's quickly play this test case, and we will get the test report. One of the page objects, public page objects that are available, this is an object called extend reports, and it just adds integration with extend reports library. And this library is used by different teams who are using Selenium. So this is pretty popular reporting library. And if you will install this page object from GitHub, Rapise will start using it to generate reports. So for example, let's just play this test. And in the end, we will see the report in extend reports format. Here we go. If we have many test cases, then here we will see the results of execution. We can analyze it. We can view some charts. So this is the integration with extend reports library. We have all this described in more details in our highlights video, so you can go to our YouTube channel and find it there. And with that said, I'm passing word back to AI team, and Alexei will show you more advanced features of AI.
Oh, before we do that, I just have a couple of questions on Shadow DOM, so I thought maybe we'll talk about them now. One question, sorry. Let me 1 second. We are using automation framework based on native Selenium and JavaScript. Will we be able to take advantage of AI or new solution for working with Shadow DOM?
So not sure I get the whole idea of this question, but if we talk about AI, then in Rapise, we trained AI to generate Rapise API tests, so tests that are using Rapise global objects and page objects that you create in your testing framework. So it's not trained to generate a pure Selenium code. And if we talk about Shadow DOM, then Shadow DOM support thing, it's also using Rapise libraries to interact with the browser, and it's not well suited to just pure Selenium code if you have a framework that is not using object repository in Rapise. So you may create a ticket in our support portal, and we may discuss this in more details and maybe arrange a screen sharing session to talk in more details.
Definitely, yeah. Feel free to log a support ticket about that. Before we go into Alexei, a couple of AI questions that I think we can just knock out quickly, and then we can go into Alexei's section. Is there someone asked, Cher asked, is there an easy way to have AI use the existing manual Spira test cases and create scripts? The answer there is yes. If you remember earlier on, I showed how you can, and I can, if you give me a second, I can quickly share my screen one more time. Yeah, this is an example manual test in Spira. you can use the existing integration that Rapise has to show that same manual test in Spira, and then there is a copy. There's a button which does then take this and copy it into the AI agent. So you can take these 3 steps, and they can go into the, if I remember correctly, Denise, they can be pasted in here as AI commands. So you can take those 3 steps, and they become these 3 rows, and then you can use the AI generator to play that test automatically, and then use the functionality to generate and refine that based on it. So there is a path for taking manual tests in Spira through the manual steps interface into Rapise. There's also another option which we have, which Alexei will show in a minute, where you can take a screenshot from Spira. So one option is to use the manual steps editor here, and it appears here, and it goes into Rapise. Another also simple option is there's an option in Rapise to take a screenshot of this and turn it into the automated step, the AI generated automation as well. Alexei will show that in just a second. We quickly look at the questions. If there's anything else? Sorry. Will we have opportunity to test these functionalities, including the GPT features, for free? Everything but GPT is free. If you want to use the GPT features, we're currently using a bring your own license. So you need to put an API key in. So it will require a paid ChatGPT OpenAI account. Doesn't use a lot of tokens, so it's definitely not a huge expense, but you will need to have an account to use that. If you already have an Azure account for your company, you can also use that as well. We are looking at having the option to have Inflectra provide the AI tokens through either OpenAI or Claude as bundled into the trial. That's something we are looking to do. It's not yet available. So right now you would need to bring your own API key and have the availability for that. So Rapise is going to need that currently.
I may add here, just use GPT-4o mini model, which is almost free. So it's so cheap that playing whole day using Rapise with it, you will unlikely burn more than $1. So yeah.
So it's cents, US dollars, cents, not like lots of dollars. Another question: can AI help with statal selenium exceptions? Any ideas on that one?
I think it's better to proceed through support system. So something very specific.
Okay. And the last 2 questions then, or not, just want to mention we answered them. Questions came in on the chat window. We don't need to specify the number of books to generate because it's lazy AI. It will generate a certain number of books. If you wanted to generate more than like 10 books, you could have said generate 50 books, 20 books. The AI is flexible in that way. There's a question which we'll come back to about Gherkin. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Alexei to show the next part of the demonstration, and then we'll come back to the last questions.
Okay, great. So hi, everyone. And first, since we have a question and I'm supposed to demonstrate something, so the simplest way to see it is to visit YouTube, type Rapise AI. You will find Rapise AI playlist. And one of the topics is about Spira test manual test to AI. So it covers the scenario where you translate manual tests using AI into automated test case. So just check it out. I'm not prepared to show it live, but I believe this short video will demonstrate this feature completely. Now I'm switching to what I was going to show today. And the common problem with the AI, usually it's really hard to stop demonstrating it. There are just too many different things in it, and usually there is never enough time to show everything. So we'll try to show the basics as much as I can to fit into the time limitations. And the first example is very trivial. I'm going to show you the calculator. This is the application, and my goal is to add a test case. And I'm going to, I already have a framework, testing framework, with few test cases and some assets in it. When I talk about assets, I mean, in this case, objects. So the goal of AI in general is to take whatever assets you have. Your assets may be your manual test cases, it may be some documentation topics, it may be your requirements, it may be your object repositories, it may be your page objects, and try to link it together to help you to convert it to something executable. So in general, this is what the whole AI implementation is about. So in this case, I'm going to demonstrate some features related to object repositories. So in this case, the trivial testing framework is like that. So we have a calculator with a number of buttons, and all these buttons were learned earlier into this test case. And I'm going to create another test case where, for example, I want to check the division. It would be RWL. And I'm going to do it AI way or manual way. It should be something as simple as do 10 divided by 4. And then, for example, check that the result is 2 and 5. So this is my test case. And you may see it is as close to manual as possible. So now what I can do, I can show the AI panel for this test case and just try to generate everything. So you see it was a bit confused. It didn't understand what I mean when I want to divide 10 by 4. So it just divided 10 by 4. And then it added some real validation logic. Because it has a lack of information at this point, because this is just empty test case, empty sheet, and I'm asking it to do this. So I'm adding some more context, and I'm also demonstrating a feature. So I want it to use my objects. I'm dragging them right here. And you may see there is a link to repository. So since Rapise 8.2, you may have many repositories containing different forms, different parts of your application, and you may add them to your RWL sheets selectively. So not to have shared repository, but choose which objects you want to use. Once I have it added, I may see that drop-down of available objects contains all my objects with specified prefix. In this case, the prefix is calc buttons. It's taken from the name. And I could add like more object repositories here. And now let's see how it affected the generation of the test case. Pressing the same generate all button. And as you may see, this time it was smart enough to realize that we have buttons and use them for code generation. So we added some more context, and we have some more results. I may execute this code, and this one should work fine, I think. Oops. I may just play it. Let me hide it. So it was able to use these buttons from the repository and click on them. While this one, it has troubles, and we are going to explain what the troubles are and how to fix them. So it complains that the comparison is not okay. So it took the object result, used get text, and if we dive into this object, we will find that this object has properties text and value. And the text returns the word result, so it's a name of the object. So I could change it to get value, and to do this, I just may change this generated code, apply it, and run. So this time, it captured the result 2.5, but it complains that result differs from what is expected. Let's see. I copied two values, pasting them, and you may see here I have nothing, and here I have a white space here. So the calculator itself contains a white space, and that prevents from proper comparison. So I may add some more code here. And at this point, you may start complaining what I'm doing. I'm just writing the JavaScript. It's far from magic of AI you were expecting. But I would say what I'm doing is I'm creating valuable assets, and in a second you will see how these assets are valuable. So I updated this single line to work perfectly. So if I play it right now, it should validate the result and produce what I wanted. So now verification is okay. And from now on, if I add some more examples, and I may add examples in pretty free form. For example, check that 3 divided by 3 plus 1 equals 2. Let's try that.
Wow, really?
We'll see. So you see, it captured the logic, and it captured the whole set of objects. So I'm pretty free in how I can express my test. So it could come from different input sources, and it would be really stable. So once I have really assets that are self-explaining, once I have all the needed things, it would be able to generate what I want. Now, if I add a new tab here, and generate something similar like that. Let me also copy the repository so it would reuse it. So let's change this example bit. So 3 plus 1 is 4. Mm-hmm. So now I'm showing the same panel, generating. And you see the code that is doing this verification is again incorrect. It's again using get text, and we know it's not working properly. And this is where I may go back and I may reuse the things I created earlier. So this is the action that I wrote manually, and this is the way I want it to do the validation from now on. So I click on this ellipsis and doing thumbs up. So this is an example of how I want it to be done in the future. And it adds the example to the file called AI examples.txt. So now, if I go to my another sheet, another example that was generating wrong code, and update the generation, I can see, so from now on, it's taken into account this example, and it's producing the code in stable and in a way that I once tuned it to do. So it's now taking my knowledge and reusing it across code generation. It's taking the assets from the repository and also taking the assets from the examples and producing the test cases. So it makes it more stable. One more thing I wanted to demonstrate, and this is the perfect case. So what I want is, I want my calculator to behave, test cases to behave in a more uniform way. And usually when we do something manually and we need to do some calculation, first thing we do, we click on this clear button and then do something with calculator. So I want all my test cases to always click on the clear button first to make sure the calculation goes smoothly. And this is another example feature. So I have a file AI prompt. If you don't have it, you may just create it with exactly that name. And I may ask it to always click on the clear button before doing calculation. I have a phrase, so I just will copy it. So I'm adding it to the command prompt, going back, and for example, going here to my first example, and generating everything. So regenerating everything, but this time it would take into account the command prompt, and it would take into account the example, so everything I have. And you may see that right now we have additional operation here that is doing the click on the clear button before doing everything else. And it's smart enough to not do clear here when we are doing validation, and to do clear here when we check in the next example. So it's doing reasonable clicks on clear. It's generating the test cases in a way I like. And we may again update here. So here I have previously generated code, and this is another feature. So Rapise is not touching your code unless you ask it to do this explicitly. This is done to not touch AI without you ask for it, you to touch. So when I execute this test, it's not connecting to OpenAI. It's not consuming any tokens. So if I execute this test for like 1 million iterations, it would consume 0 tokens, because all the token consumption, all the AI spending is done during the generation, during the process, like the one you are seeing now on the screen. So this is the okay.
Also, that makes it faster as well, because otherwise you'd be waiting for the LM every single time you went through every line as well.
Yeah, sure. And also, to be frank, AI still, it's like creative, so it may be dreaming sometimes, and sometimes you want to regenerate. And this is not definitely not what you want to do when you have 1 million iterations. No time for dreaming, just run. All right, so so we just demonstrated the repository feature and generation, AI prompts, and AI examples. Now let me show you one more example that shows the solid approach behind the Rapise frameworks. So Rapise frameworks and AI were created for each other, and in addition to objects, which, as we said, is one of the assets you have, you may have page objects. And it's a really good design when you have proper page objects. In this case, you don't need to share object repositories, and you may rely on page objects that you create and fine-tune to implement your test cases. And AI in Rapise is perfectly aligned with this approach. So it would reuse your page objects and global objects and will try to implement your test case using those. For example, I have a testing framework that is implemented in like old way. For example, it has some test cases implemented using this PO common page object, and this PO common page object has all the operations like adding author, opening library information system, navigating, and so on and so forth. And this is like pre-AI way. Now I may ask it to implement the similar scenarios and express these scenarios in pure AI way or in manual tests way. And since I already have these page objects, it would reuse them, and it makes it the most natural way of implementing manual test cases. So let me show you different aspects of that. First of all, in this example, I ask it to log in as librarian, and then I ask it to create author with the same name and see the word same. So you cannot use same when you do JavaScript or coding. You need to say something specific, what name you mean. In AI, it's absolutely fine. So it would look at what name you used before, and it would figure out what name do you mean. So that couple of phrases is absolutely fine for the manual test, because manual tester would understand them flawlessly. And this is completely something inappropriate when you do scripting. And now this is absolutely fine because AI makes it working as expected. So let me show you what has been generated. And as you may see, it generated the code that is using page object PO API. First, it used it to do login, and then it used it to create an author. And the same name you see, it's librarian. So it figured out that I want to use my librarian, and it just passed this as a value. Also, it has a second parameter for creation for author creation. It's the second parameter is an age of the author, and I didn't specify it, and AI Georgios enough to provide some value for me, just some reasonable value. So that test works fine. So that test works perfectly. And just one thing is that, as you see, I have two page objects. One is interacting with my application using API, and one is interacting using AI. So, for example, I want to execute exactly the same, but using UI. So just open browser, enter login, and so on. So this test case would work, but it would work without anything on the screen because it's using REST API. And here I'm demonstrating additional feature. So it's exactly the same test case, exactly the same couple of steps. The difference is this comment with double hash. So whatever I say with this double hash goes as additional information for the AI generator. So I'm providing some more context to the test case that is supposed to be executed right here. And in this case, I'm asking it to prefer using UI instead of using API. And this is what was generated for this test case. So instead of using PO API, it used PO common and used its methods to interact with the application. So this information was enough for it to find everything and to implement the test case. Now, next, it used again 30 here to pass the value, and it's common to have the age in some variable, and right here I have a variable called author age. So everything is exactly the same as here, except there is a variable defined. And let's see what it has generated. So for this case, since it saw that there is there is no value specified in this AI command, so I didn't say what value to use, but there is a variable that pretends to contain the value I need. It used it to pass as preferred author age. So it's naturally used some variables that also could contain some input parameters, some test parameters, whatever else in generated test case, and it would use it in interactions. One more change to the same scenario. Again, the same couple of lines. And this time I wanted, instead of static value librarian, I wanted to use some parameterized values. These values could come from map, from, again, external variables, from global variables, from some file, whatever else. So in this command, I asked AI to do login using the values in curly braces. And this is what has been generated. So this operation will first apply the values, and then it will be executed. But the operation would be exactly the same. So it would use API and to login and then to create an author. I believe I didn't regenerate it because it's using API instead of UI. But let's try to update it. Didn't work. This is AI. This is live demo. Something happened. Let's try again.
If not, don't worry about it.
Yeah,
now it's made them both API.
Sometimes we need to be more specific.
Right.
Okay. If it doesn't work, we'll check it later.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah, so it didn't get me. So something wrong. We'll check it later.
Well, it worked. It just used the non-page objects. It used the native objects.
Yeah, so it captured objects which are available here, I think, but this is not what I wanted.
So you should say, treat this as UI, don't use API, and always use page objects. So it's like, so the one thing that's interesting, to me, it's like you're training a new person. It's like you have a new automation engineer on the team. You've basically been teaching them. It's like you go from being a scriptwriter to a teacher.
Yeah. So that's very simple, similar to that you are talking to intern or so some kind, and yeah, you are giving him some assignments
to help you implement something.
And then he learns and
very close to that.
remembers. And I think we have to wrap up on time. We're almost at the time. Before we, I've answered some of the questions that were not related to AI in line. If there's anything else you want to show, I was just going to wrap up.
Just one last thing is that your AI command may be multi-line and it may contain some formatting. So if you have your test cases in something like PDF or something like that, you may paste additional. So your AI command may be longer than one line and they may contain some additional information. And that's fine. So that's fine for Rapise to generate the code.
So yeah, I mean, just to wrap up for everyone who's been listening, I appreciate everyone enjoying this webinar. What you've seen is we've taken from the very beginning a user story written in Spira. We took it into a manual test case, and you of course will have many manual test cases. And then in Rapise, we've shown you how you can take that manual test case and automate it into an automated script. And that automation could be very simple, using just built-in objects that you've learned in the application. It could use any page objects you've defined, and you can use the prompting. As Alexei showed you, to help improve the model. So if it's missing things like not clearing the data or not going to the first page, things that are always global, you can simply have that be an instruction. So really, the way to think about it is AI is learning from your instructions. And as you use the AI functionality, give it feedback, add the prompts, thumbs up, thumbs down, it's only going to get better. And the great thing is you can then reuse that across the other pages and the other sheets in the application. And that way, everything you do is improving and tuning it for your particular application, your particular use case. So AI is basically an investment in the same way that if you, instead of hiring a new employee and thinking about how you have to train them, it's exactly the same. You've hired a new virtual employee and now you're training them to do their job even better. And as the more you use it, the productivity is just going to get better and better and better. So hopefully you've seen that the future is definitely going to be AI driven, and that the idea of having manual scripts being written in Selenium and in Java is probably going to be looked at the way we look at certain things we did 5 years ago as archaic. The future is going to be AI-assisted automation. It does streamline things, simplifies things, and reduces the time to market, especially as developers are going faster. Testers got to catch up. So with that, I believe we've answered all the questions. Looking quickly here, I answered some in line when we were talking. If you have more questions about the application, first of all, you can sign up for a free trial on our website. You can also watch the highlight videos that are on our YouTube channel that Alexei showed earlier, including the one about moving from Spira manual cases to automation. And of course, there's a free trial available on our website for Rapise. And please use the GPT 4.0 mini model. That's basically free. And that way, almost free, not quite free, you can use that to then test this out as well. If you're already a Rapise user, feel free to upgrade the latest version, obviously, as well. And of course, all the products are backed by our world-class support team. So please, if you've run into any problems, log a support ticket. We are here to help you make sure you're successful with test automation. Thanks again. Looking forward to seeing you on the next Inflectra webinar. And otherwise, I will see you maybe at Star West for those who are coming to that conference in 3 weeks' time in Anaheim, California. Thanks everyone for attending, and have a great rest of the day.